Welcome everyone to this episode of Green Talks. We're back to talk about research on membrane separation as a force for driving sustainability in the water. I'm Thomas Seche, your student host once again from Green Hub Twente. Today, we can welcome Professor Wiebe de Vos, who will talk about his specific research and much more related to this episode of SDGs. Mr. Wiebe is a professor in membrane science and technology, with his key research being in the fundamentals of surface science, with physical chemistry and the applied field of membranes. I'm very looking forward to his explanation to all that it encompasses. Do not worry, he'll give us a one-on-one basic crash course on all of the environmental relevant research fields. Thank you, Wiebe, for accepting our invitation.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Could you please break down your academic career for us and what exactly your research background is?
Yeah, so a little bit different background. So I started my education really at Wageningen University, molecular sciences, which is a combination of physics, chemistry, biology. And there I specialize in the field of physical chemistry. So it's not making molecules, but rather how molecules interact with each other. And I started a PhD there on polymer brushes and defouling coatings, really looking at very fundamental science. So how to modify a surface to keep it clean, to make it less fouling, for example. And that I kept developing. I kept pushing forward. I then did a postdoc at Bristol University where we looked at these coatings, but in a very fundamental way. We would go to a nuclear reactor. We would use neutron radiation to study in depth the molecular properties of these kind of coatings, how they behave when swollen with water, when a pressure was applied. And I loved that. It was terrific work. It was very interesting.
It sounds cool as well.
But it missed something. And that is a bit of an application. Why are you doing what you're doing? What is the relevance of it? And then we were looking, my wife was there as well, doing her postdoc at the University of Bath and doing their great work on her things, green shampoos.
Lovely.
In Bath.
Yeah.
And, basically, we had to kind of, we wanted to go back for family reasons. And, we saw an opportunity here, membrane science. And, that attracted me immediately. Because a membrane is, in essence, something with lots of surface area. That is something I knew something about. I did not know anything about membranes, but I thought, this is a chance to learn, a chance to add something, a chance to make a difference, maybe. And that... Well, I can only say it worked out perfectly. This combination of having a unique look at things, unique look at membrane science, because I came from a different field. But then, in combination with a very strong background that is here already in Twente on membranes, more than 50 years of in-depth research, one of the starting hubs of membrane science in the world.
Really, I didn't know that.
Well, you should.
I should, yeah.
Because it is really something we're very proud of. There's now 2 big membrane companies here that are spin-offs of this university, Pentair X-Flow and NX Filtration. Something to be very proud of. And many
Indeed.
more of these things around us that membrane recipes that were developed here and are used in the world now. So I specialized in this, using my background, combining that with membrane science, with the applied fields, and this is really how I started and how I got where I was. And it helps if you have unique ideas. It also helps you to get grant income. My group grew. At some point, my boss left to another university, and I became head of the group and was able to become a professor. And that's basically it.
Yeah, that's exciting, and we're gonna get back to the grants as well. And your research. We're gonna go pretty deep into it. So I just wanted to say that, you also work together with Boelo Schuur, who we have interviewed before.
Certainly.
Could you explain maybe how does your research field differ from his, or how do you guys work together?
Well, Boelo and I started mainly as teachers together. We give one course, Advanced Molecular Separations. That really is, I would say my core course, something I love teaching. And where I'm a specialist dedicated to one separation science, membrane science, and look at, well, the material for the membrane and the process around it, those kind of things, the mass transport. Boelo is much more a general separation scientist, and he specializes in extraction, distillation. And I think that is why we complement each other so nicely. We work together well because, well, what he does in his field, I can learn a lot from. What I do in my field, he can learn from. And together we have this more complete picture. And that is also what we try to bring to the students that we teach. We try to teach them all about the separation technologies. But then at some point we give them a case study. We say, well, this is a separation problem. These molecules need to be separated. They are toxic. They need to be removed from a waste stream. And then the students get to decide, well, I will use this separation technology or I will use this one. And I think this is exactly what we are doing well in Twente, building this generation of young minds that are able to make tough decisions like this, are critical in their thinking. And that's something we love doing. Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Now, before we go into learning more about your research, I want to ask you the following question. What is your most unsustainable guilty pleasure? I would say that maybe it is really something I did last week, I would say, almost. You have these kind of conferences on climate, for example. And then that also coincides with the most amount of airplane traffic of private jets of rich people that are trying to save our environment in the world, right? Very true.
And in a way, of course, I do something similar. So I had a conference called the Green Ring. So this was all about sustainability, but it was in Spain.
Oh.
And that is, of course, I try to fly little, not too much. But I do, when you go flying, when you go visit another city, I do love it, of course. I go for the conference, but I also go for the people to meet there, but also for being there. So that is still something we can do better, of course. Make sure that we do more and more conferences online and use less travel. But at the same point, we do need to sometimes get together and really look each other in the eyes and look at what we're doing and look at collaborations that we can build, etc. It's something that I still feel is needed. It's important, but we should maybe put a little bit more effort in lessening the amount of travel we do as scientists. And that's definitely something I'm trying to do. But sometimes, guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, maybe. This is a question more for the people that doing the rail network. How are they doing and what are their plans? But So let's get to our first question regarding your personal motivation on sustainability, because we're here to talk about sustainability and much more. So what motivated you to explore this field of, let's talk about polyelectrolytes, nanofiltration, membranes and their interaction, and how does sustainability come into the game?
So for me, polyelectrolytes, that was something I took back from my previous field. So this is something that I had the pleasure of working together in Wageningen with my professor, Martinko and Stewart, and he was one of the pioneers in polyelectrolyte complexation and what to do with it. Now, polyelectrolyte is a charged polymer, and it can come in two flavors, negatively charged and positively charged. Both of them are very well water soluble. So that means you can easily put them in water, work with them in water. And that is what we do as well. But when they come together, the negative and the positive, they attract each other. Basically, it comes from a release of counter ions, increase in entropy, not so important. They attract each other. And when they attract each other, they form something that is not water soluble anymore. So this is interesting. You have a material that you can process in water, work with in water, but the moment you bring them together, they form a new material, and that new material is not water soluble. And I really felt, well, this is, if we can make membranes from this, for example, then we can circumvent all this kind of problems that we have with the organic solvents that are nowadays used. You don't know this, but membranes seem very sustainable. But if you look at how the membranes themselves are made, nasty organic solvents, reprotoxic in nature, they mix with the water stream, so you're polluting water streams. There's real problems there. So if we can make our membranes completely in water, and that's something we show now that we can do, is make these membranes in water or make coatings out of them in water, that is something that comes. So it came from my previous background. It's something that we introduced here, that we've made into products by now, new membranes that are actually applied thanks to companies like Penta Flow and exfiltration. And that is relevant. And where does the sustainability come from? Well, sustainability, I'm a father, I have young children. I really want to give them a world that is, a little bit better than it was. But that is very difficult. We're only making it worse at the moment. So if we want to do something, we really need to step up. And again, that is technology, making sure we put in smart technology to make things better. It's also just making better use of technology that is already there. And that aspect I see too little back. We're too focused maybe sometimes on just making new things. And if we make that new things, it will improve everything. But there is already very good membranes in the world that would really help with sustainability if we just started using them more.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. Now, a short question. What SDGs do you think are most closely related to your work? And how do you see your research especially contributing to them?
Well, so the focus for us is always clean water and sanitation for all, because that is what comes out of a membrane. It should. Clean water, something that people can immediately use. And of course, then we think of drinking water and sanitation water. Those are important. At the same time, I would say that we certainly also try to clean the water for environmental reasons. Think of life below water. One example. When you take medicines, you use them in your body, but you go to the toilet and most of these medicines end up in your toilet. And then they go to our municipal wastewater treatment plants. So that is where our water is cleaned. And surprisingly little of these molecules are actually degraded in our municipal wastewater centers. So they just end up in the environment. And one news bulletin that was just there 10 years ago when I started here at this university was that also here in Twente, so locally, in our lakes, rivers, so much hormones, so this is from anticonception, the pill, so much hormones came into the water that some male fish were starting to produce egg cells. So male fish start to behave like female fish, biologically started. That is crazy, right? And this is in Twente. This is in the Netherlands, where we're known for our quality of water. So certainly also making sure that we remove these problematic, small, toxic organic molecules is not just important for humans and for clean water, but certainly also for the environment and life below water, on land. I think this is critical.
Yeah, now that you talk about the hormones, I'm not sure I want to swim in any of these lakes anymore. Oh, okay. So now you told us about a bit on the research topics that you are working with, but what kind of innovative technologies you can still mention to us when it comes to working with the separation of these hazardous molecules or hormones whatsoever, and to making them more sustainable and also make the whole process more effective? What technologies do you introduce?
Now, so what we was, because membranes could be used, and this is the reverse osmosis membrane. This is used already in big scales in the world to take seawater, remove all the salts so that you get drinking water or irrigation water. And that's an important application. So what you find is that most membranes were developed for that purpose, removing salts. And what we are trying to do now is develop new membranes that are not focusing on those salts, but on those pollutants. And why is this? Well, for example, if we take a reverse osmosis membranes, we could remove these hormones as well. And there's even drinking water in the companies in the Netherlands, like Oase, and they're now starting to do this. And make sure that they remove PFAS, medicines, all of this using an RO membrane. Now, this comes at a price. You pay more energy to push water to an RO membrane because it's so dense, so it comes with more energy. But also, if you remove all the salt, then you need to add salt again. So you need to bring salt from a salt mine somewhere, drive it there, all the CO2, etc. So what we try to do is develop membranes with unique properties that were not there before. For example, to disconnect the salt retention and the retention of organic molecules. And that is where we try to develop a new type of nanofiltration membrane, something that we've become very successful at, is making sure that we block these organic molecules, but we allow as much as possible the salts to pass through. Now you break that cycle. You can now clean your water using less energy because it takes less energy to push the water through these membranes. But also, you now have a situation where the membrane, where the salt is passed through, so you don't need to add salt again to make it drinkable.
Yeah.
So making a new material like polyacrylates, then leading to a more sustainable way of making membranes, but then also allowing new properties of the membrane, and that leading to new effective processes. That is very powerful, and that chain of thinking, that is, I think, where sustainability really comes through, and you can make a difference.
Yeah, and concluding this, so the cleaning of water is not only a problem in developing countries, but also in developed countries.
So this problem of these organic molecules, the high amount of that is almost something that you see more in developing countries because there more medicine is used, more things are used. But certainly we should think about developing countries as well, and that partly means making it cheap enough, making sure that it becomes a commodity product, that there is it's easy to use. And certainly that is also something we focus on. Technology like this should not come at a high price. It should be something that is very achievable and attainable in a simple way. So that's also always something that we focus on, making sure that what we do is relevant. Don't use highly expensive materials that might give a slightly better membrane, but focus on using simple blocks that are already commercially available. So you can build something that can be much more quickly applied. And again, we started 10 years ago, and already some of these membranes are now in market, and that is very quickly. That doesn't happen often. And that is because of such an approach, using what is there rather than using highly specialized, unique molecules. And
Indeed. You told me earlier as well that one of the main issues with membranes is that the technology is there, just not being applied on a wide scale yet.
We need to bring that message a bit. People are scared a little bit of membranes because they feel there's the problems with fouling, there's the problems with other things, and they are there. They are problems, but they are problems that we've been able to at least mitigate, maybe not solve, but at least make them so small that you can work around them and work with them. And it depends, of course, on the water stream. That is always a problem. So some water streams, it's easy to use maybe another technology, and we should also not say you should only use the membranes. No, again, think of the way I work with Boelo, always looking for the best separation for the specific case, the specific task. But membranes can really have a big benefit because with relatively low energy, you can create clean water from a rather difficult stream, and that is a big advantage that is there.
Yeah, I think that's fairly now understandable. Maybe you can point us what are the misconceptions then about your field in terms of, let's say, energy sustainability and the process.
I think mostly membranes are seen as very complex or difficult, and that you need a lot of information to work with them and understand them. And there is a difference. As a technology like distillation is by now so worked out that and understood that you can basically, using simple programs and devices, you can easily design in silico a full-scale distillation unit, and when you build it operates exactly as you predicted or close to it. And again, this is what colleagues do that are very good at it. Membranes are so specific to the water stream that you're treating that you always need that in-between step. You need to maybe do a lab test first, and maybe do a pilot scale test and then you can build the full scale interaction. So it's a much more difficult road to go from a first experiment to full scale. It takes a lot longer for a technology that is newer, like membranes, that needs still more fundamental understanding, more work. But that is the typical conundrum that you find in process technology, that because something is not used, it's not so well understood, but because it's not so well understood, it's not used. And this is what we're pushing through, and making it more and more available, making it easier and easier, developing tools that people can model, predict what they expect. And I think that is something that is going to make a difference. And of course, training all these young people that they already know about membranes, that they have this in mind when they, start designing their factories.
Indeed. And sharing information like we are just doing it right now is a very important part of closing this cycle.
I fully agree. Yes.
Very nice. Now that we are talking about cycles, I also understand and realize that the way you are doing all these processes and using the wastewater and making it clean water, again, it's a very much a circular economy concept. So can you tell us about how will, let's say, circular economy, or how did circular economy become so important? And what is your role in playing this shift?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, when I started 10 years ago, our main focus was on removing those pollutants or something like this, and making sure that you try to prevent these molecules coming into the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on you realize, well, if we're making the water so clean that basically you go from municipal wastewater that you're treating, so this is really, well, quite dirty water still,
Mm-hmm.
that you're putting that membrane there, and the membrane removes all these things. That's a salt too. Basically what comes out is essentially drinking water. It is maybe not something that you would want to drink because you're afraid, well, it's just sewage and then one little membrane and then I should drink it. That's fair.
Yeah.
Socially, the social acceptance is maybe a bit different. But basically you're coming into a situation where you get very clean water. And then, well, should you just dump that water, let it flow freely into your rivers and lakes? That's fine. That's one option. Or should you already think, well, maybe we can now reuse this water? And that is so important because, at that point, 10 years ago, a drought in the Netherlands was unheard of. But now with climate change and within the past years, we've seen immense droughts in the summer in the Netherlands. We've seen situations where there's a lot of pressure on people to reduce uses of water. Agriculture needs to use less water. Rivers are so low that the boats cannot go there. And this is if we can have this cycle of using water, cleaning water, using water, cleaning water in a better way, I think that will be very beneficial, not just for indeed developing countries where droughts are a problem, but certainly also countries like the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see the issue, the problem to be solved is very closer than we might realize.
Yes.
So maybe how do you see then water filtration and all these circular economy applications contributing to, the nanofiltration of membranes, and what are some key challenges that you are facing right now?
Now, so when we think of the membranes that we've developed so far, we've developed a number of generations. And the first generation we developed, it was really powerful membrane already. It worked well, and it was incredibly chemically stable. Why is that important? When you clean a membrane, and you need to clean the membrane now and again because bacteria do adhere sometimes to it, and you want to remove them. Then the point is that it will, block a little bit the membrane. So you have to clean it. You use some chemicals for that. Again, you use chemicals, but you would also use that for other technologies. It's still really quite a green approach. But the membrane needs to withstand it. If the membrane cannot withstand that chemical treatment, using chloride-based approaches like you would use in your toilet, for example, that kind of approaches, then you cannot use your membrane, and you want to use your membrane for at least 5 years. So what we developed were membranes that were chemically stable. They were commercialized. They made this big breakthrough. And then we developed even better membranes that even better are able to stop these micropollutants, these medicines, the hormones, 98, 99% removal, these kind of things. But they don't have that chemical stability yet that we want. So this means that you can clean them more difficult, that you have to do a pre-process step to make sure that rather clean water gets there. So what we're looking now is really that for us that close by goal in the coming 3 through 4 years is get that perfect membrane with really this excellent separation property and that chemical stability that makes it so that you don't have to change your membrane every half year, because that would not be sustainable at all. But rather that you can use it for 5 years or even longer, and that is what we're looking for.
Okay. Yeah, that's very. How difficult is it to produce that membrane, and how do you even produce it?
Well, the secret is that it's absolutely not difficult. So this is something that is... so what we do to make these membranes is we have a support membrane. So this is what we start with, something that is porous already. And that porous membrane has a charge, for example, negative. And then we just take such a membrane and we dip coat it in a solution with a positively charged polymer. And the positively charged polymer automatically finds a negative charge and sticks there. And we've made a layer now, a layer of 1 nanometer. And then we take it out, we wash it a bit, we put it in another solution. But because the positive polymer adsorbed, the surface is now positive, you put it in a layer, in a solution with negative polactylite. Negative polactylite comes in, sticks, forms another layer of a nanometer. And this is nanotechnology for dummies. It is something where you are able to build nanometer by nanometer, so with an enormous amount of control. But at the same time, it is as simple as putting it in a bit of water with some polymer, putting it in another bit of water with some polymer, etc., etc. We even have a dip coating robot doing that for us, and it's made from Lego. I'm not allowed to mention brand names, but these little blocks you can click together.
Yeah.
And we used it to build a simple dip coating device, so it's even automated now. But this is how simple that can be. So making a membrane with highly advanced separation properties can at the same time be something that any bachelor master student here at the university would learn within 5 minutes when they're in our labs.
Yeah, that's that. Wow. Yeah, so it's basically like 3D printing using water.
Well, it's step-by-step printing, but indeed some printing techniques are that layer-by-layer system, and that is exactly that. And it really works very nicely. And there's a lot of control. So if you add a bit more salt in your system when you're doing this coating, the layer becomes a bit more open. When you add less salt, it becomes more closed. If you use different polactylites, you get different properties, material properties, and thus separation properties. And this makes it so powerful, that control that you have over the properties. If you change the material, you change the separation, and then eventually leading to new processes.
Yeah. Would you be able to do the same thing, let's say 10, 20 years ago?
Well, interestingly enough, this method was developed, this layer by layer, about 30 years ago. So that it was when it was developed. I'm not the first to do it on a membrane. So there were Merlin Breuning and Ben Tieke, and they were the first to about 20 years ago. They tried it on a membrane. They saw it worked, but they didn't understand it yet, how it worked. And I think this is, funnily, when I started as a scientist and I did this very fundamental work, I did learn a lot about these systems that then when you come to the applied field, you use, and that, I think that way of tuning, that understanding the intricacies of how it works, that was really needed to make it into a nice membrane. So you do see that you applied and fundamental, they are linked. You need that fundamental understanding to make steps in an applied field as well.
Well, that's a very good motivation for us to learn theory. I agree there. So we have also mentioned kind of the future on how, we're going to go more circular in terms of our water usage, and how membrane nanofiltration could play a crucial role in also wastewater from municipalities or industry. So maybe some more examples that you could give us in terms of how this technology could be used further.
So the way I see it, we've already on the market, you could say there are now very good nanofiltration membranes for water treatment and even for municipal wastewater treatment. They can still become better, it's something we're working on, but they are already good. Now, the interesting thing is that there's a lot of other fields where such membranes could now be applied as well. One thing I'm really thinking of now is biorefinery. And we were very happy to have a big European grant recently, which was in a consortium of different doctoral training network, it's called. So 10 PhD students all over Europe. And here we'll look with all these kind of partners at how to push membrane technology further in biorefinery, making molecules from bio-based feedstock, but then the big challenge separating them in a good way. And this is where these membranes, and again these unique properties of, for example, blocking a certain organic molecule with a certain size, allowing salts to pass because you don't need them anymore at some point. These kind of things, I can see a big potential there. Also food, same thing. There's lots of ways that processing food could become easier with this kind of membranes. So this is things we're exploring now a little bit. Now we have this great technology. Now we need to make certain that we don't just, and I'm saying just in a not in a negative way, but don't just use it for water, but also for all the other places where sustainability is a challenge, but where it could add something and make something better.
Yeah, here with, as you mentioned, with biorefineries, I also see a great connection with your colleague Boelo, who is already working with the separation processes on biorefineries. You can find his episodes as well in our series. And we also had Pilar with us, who was also talking about biorefineries and what actually, bio materials could be and how we could make liquids using feedstock, as you said. And next, I would like to go a bit more into, education and academia. So in your experience, how do you think, let's say, our university could best support this? You talked a bit about grants, but how could the university best support your efforts in achieving all these SDGs, such as SDG 6, so clean sanitation? And what role do you see teaching playing a part in this?
Let me start with teaching, because I think we talk about the interesting research, and I'm very proud of the research. But if I think about impact, things that really matter, and I think the teaching is much more important. And this is not just teaching a course, but it's also the guiding the master students in the projects, but it's also PhD students. We think of them as researchers, but really 4 years they're being educated and becoming better and better at what they're doing. And that is teaching people, making sure to transfer knowledge, transfer enthusiasm. These kind of aspects that I always see as more important than anything I do with grants and that basics. A PhD student that is with me for 4 years teaches a lot, learns a lot, but then goes out in the world and does things that are good for sustainability for many, many years, right? So in a way, this is the big investment that we should make. Make sure always that teaching is the main thing we do. And that is very important also in our membrane science technology cluster, the bigger scale we look at. We don't want to be the best in just the science. We want to be the best in educating on our topic of membranes, because we really feel that is where you make the difference. And then the science is a tool for that. Now, how can the university support that better? I think we have a good education program here. I'm certainly not disappointed. And of course, I think rewarding teaching maybe sometimes more, making sure that career steps are not just related to getting money, which in the past it often was. And now we're looking more at the trend where great teachers, they are also getting that same advancement in their career as you don't need to you cannot only become a professor anymore just because of good science, but you can also become a professor because of excellent education. And I think this is important steps that we need to still push further within our teaching system, within our university.
Value the impact. Yeah, I can agree with that. So back to education, how could we integrate SDGs better in, let's say, your teaching, but also research? And what benefits do you think this integration could bring us?
So we had actually in our educational committee within chemical engineering, we had a good discussion on this. And one aspect is, if you do it, you should do it well. So there's this thing that we call greenwashing, and we should really take care that we don't oversimplify sustainability. So if we incorporate it in our education, it should be clear that sustainability is something that is very complex. For example, I could make a membrane in a much more sustainable way, but if it then doesn't have the stability to last for a long time, then there's no benefit. Sustainability comes from looking at the whole aspect of making something, using something, what happens to it at the end of its lifetime. You need to consider everything. So for me, it's very important to think about this in ways of teaching, that it can have a big benefit, but only if you do it properly. Only if you do it from start to finish, from head to tail. Now, of course, in our course, Advanced Molecular Separations, we try to exactly do this by making people come up with a new separation process for something. We challenge the students, but certainly, nearly all these cases have sustainability in mind. Think of cases where we look at recycling of ions from battery waste, that we think of, well, how would you achieve that? Because we are going to need it. All these batteries we're now using, we can't just throw them away. We need to do something with it. So think about that already now. How can we recycle? How can we get the lithium out to reuse it? Same holds for all these kind of processes and how we can reduce the energy that we put in to make sure that we make it more sustainable. So challenging, I would think, challenging students now to already let them think of what are the complexities, but what are the opportunities, that is very important.
Yeah, this very much sounds like challenge-based learning.
Yes,
We also had a
yes.
colleague here to talk about, what's the basic of that. But I completely see the reflection of CBL in how you are teaching and what you are teaching, and also the importance of having CBL in teaching. Okay, maybe some practical steps for industries to improve, their processes, and why would you urge them to think about their wastewater?
Well, what I find is that in these aspects we see industry is very conservative. So they are almost afraid of doing something, of being the first. And I think this is where we're now at a scenario where sustainability is no longer optional. It is necessary. We cannot do without it. And that also means that if you miss the boat now and you stay using your old type processes that are not sustainable, then another crisis will come where energy prices will be much higher. And if you haven't invested, you'll get into trouble. The same holds for water treatment. If you're not already looking at these things, regulations will come that will force you to do it. And then it might be too late. So think about it already, invest already now, because it is coming. The world is changing, we cannot stop it. It's needed, it's necessary. So please be head of the pack instead of being the last one over the line, because I don't think it will be good for those companies.
Lead and don't follow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's inspirational. And very good points, definitely. So last but not least, you have mentioned that you have received many grants. I thought it would be interesting, and I'm also curious to hear what was the most prestigious grant that you have been awarded, and why are you so proud of it, and what is the relevance of it for your research work?
Yeah, let me start by saying that when I think of proud, I am very proud of my students. I'm very proud of the scientific projects we do. When I look at grants, I am, I know I'm lucky when I get one, because it is a very competitive. And when one person gets a grant, another person who might just have been just as good or just as smart, but somehow didn't get it. That is the nature of the very competitive system we have now. So when I get a grant, I can only say that I'm very grateful. And proud is something that I even wonder if you should be proud when you. Of course, you can be proud of something, but I feel grateful and humble is the better words. Because when you get such a grant, then you also have an obligation to do something good with it, to do something nice with it. And then I have been lucky enough, and I am grateful that I have got a wide range of personal grants. This goes from VENI, VD to ERC Starting Grant, and now very recently an ERC Consolidated Grant. These are things, of course, they're terrific when you get that, when you have the freedom to look at this kind of research. But again, it also comes with then a clear commitment from my side to do something valuable with that money, to train new excellent people using that money, to try and do research that is as relevant as possible. And that is what I hope to do with this money, certainly with ESC that was recently awarded.
Yeah, for the ones that do not know about the grants, could you put it into perspective?
Well, so when we talk about money-wise, of course, then typically in the Netherlands we have a system called VENI, VD, Vici, where each grant is in a different career stage. VENI 3 years after your PhD, VD 8 years, and Vici 15 years, I think. And this is quite powerful because you can get these grants in when they follow up. And the first one is 300,000 by now, the next one 800,000, and the last one 1.5 million. So these are big grants, really something that you can do with something. The ESC actually copied a little bit this system from the Netherlands. They look at the Netherlands a lot when they look at their grant design. And they came up with an ESC starting, consolidator, and advanced grant. And starting grant is 7 years after your PhD, consolidated 12 years after your PhD, and then that is kind of how it goes. And it goes 1.5 million, 2 million, 2.5 million. So it really is a lot of money, and again, that is something to then be very grateful for and feel very lucky if you get it because of the insane competition that we now have in science.
Yeah, you are one of the few, but then again, it comes with a lot of responsibility. Like said in Spider-Man, power comes with a lot of responsibility.
Well, in this case, yes, money comes with responsibility to spend it in a useful way. Yes.
Wonderful. Now, last, I would just like to discuss, let's say, some partnerships, collaborations that you have been involved in that was aiming at advancing the SDGs and sustainability through your research field, and what have you learned from these experiences?
Well, I would like to say that it seems now like I did all this research, and nearly everything I've thought about I do in collaborations, and that is also how I work. I collaborate with people, I work with people. People inspire me to do better things, and I hope to inspire others. So a lot of these things are in collaborations. Some projects, it's a small collaboration, maybe us working with a single PhD student and one company, for example. These can be very interesting. There's a lot of trust then if you do it like this. But some are very big. So one I really want to highlight is a project we're now doing, and this is called an NWO TTW project. It's a much more applied way of funding, and basically you ask for funding between yourself and another university or research institute, in this case Wageningen University, the group of Huub Reinaerts. And you get a consortium of companies and institutes involved that act as a kind of steering committee. So they help to determine the route at which you go, but they also put in some money then to be part of that. And what we managed to do is get a consortium of 10 companies and institutes. So these are water boards that guide and make to clean our wastewater in the Netherlands. Drinking water companies, they are technology providers like Exfiltration, Nijhuis Industries that really build the technology to clean the water. And institutes with smart people like KWR, STOA that work on these kind of fields. And this really is very nice. So what we're now trying to do is clean wastewater. So we block the micropollutants, but then in our way of working, we send it back to the bioreactor, which is a critical part of any wastewater treatment plant. And basically we're saying, well, if 20% of the micropollutants got degraded, if we send them back, another 20% will get degraded. And if we send them back, another 20% will get degraded. So if we just keep managing to put them back, we solve really not just the problem of removing them from the water, but even we immediately do something with them to get rid of them. And this is only possible because, well, we have some very smart people within my group working on the material of the membrane, very smart people working in our cluster, like Walter van der Meer or Lammerting. They develop more the process that is involved in this. And then we have the group of Huub Reinaerts that do the bioreactor part of it, what happens if you start getting this recycle of micropollutants, and of course all the companies and institutes. So this is something that works well and is only possible because of this big group of people all working together. And that is, again, something very powerful and something I'm very happy to be part of.
Yeah, it's an excellent example of collaboration, cross-discipline, cross-functional, but really just people coming together and do what is right. That's amazing. Now, I would like to kind of wrap up this, but before I do that, I would like to ask you for a takeaway message. What should the audience take away from this episode about your research, about your inspiration, and how should they be inspired after this?
Well, I don't know. For me, there's so many things that I had to learn by doing and things that, but anything the most important thing is, I think, the final thing. Don't do science alone, because doing science alone, it doesn't get you very far and it's very lonely. Make sure to collaborate. Find people that you trust, that you can work with, that you share ideas with, share enthusiasm with. And then you can get very far. Well, you all get far, and that is the nice thing. So that for me is the main message always.
Run the marathon together.
Well, yes. And help each other where you can. Yeah. And that is, I think, the new way of science that we did maybe a little bit too little in the past, and that is really coming up now and changing. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for being part of this episode. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I really hope that the audience also enjoyed listening to your research about membranes and how this is going to shape our future and the future of water and sanitation. So thank you very much. And well, I hope to see you soon again.
Thank you. And of course, thank you to the audience for listening.